Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I am Shannon Hines, the CEO of Quickcode, and with me today is our presenter, Joe Morales. I can tell that this is a problem that really resonates with a great number of you because we've had a tremendous response to the webinar, so thank you. Before we get started, a few items of housekeeping. First of all, if you have a question, there's a Q&A button at the bottom. Please drop them in there. Our engineer, Ross, will be managing those and passing them along to Joe at the end of the webinar. And also, we will be sending out a video link to this presentation later today. So if you have to leave early or if you want just a copy, we'll be sending it out to everyone who registered. So with that, I will introduce Joe. Joe is the CTO of Quickcode. He's been the CTO of Quickcode for about 2 years. He has the distinction of being both a data scientist as well as a computer engineer. He has many years in the field, and I think you'll find him both educational and entertaining. So with that, Joe, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Shannon, and welcome everybody. You're here presumably because you have some interest in HS classification. Either you're an importer or an exporter, custom broker, freight forwarder, trade attorney, compliance professional, whatever. You're interested in HS classification. That's why you're here. And why do you care about HS classification? Because you got to get the right tariff code, because you got to pay the right taxes. You got to stay out of trouble with CBP. And as we all know, HS classification is pretty tricky. For instance, this elephant on the left, he's a live animal, mammal, other. The elephant on the right, not the same. He's a traveling circus and traveling menagerie. But how do you know that? You know that because you're a professional, because you've been trained to do this. And when you go to classify that elephant on the right, you start as a live animal, but you remember that you're supposed to go to the notes, and you check the notes, and it says this chapter covers all live animals except animals of heading 9508. Well, what does that mean? You go there and you find that that's a circus or traveling menagerie, and you're like, wait, is this elephant really a circus? No, but then you go to the chapter 95 notes, and it says that this heading chapter also covers auxiliary equipment, including animals. And you know all this because you're an expert, you've been trained to do it, you've been doing it for a long time. And the reason you're here today is because you want to know, are the robots coming for my job? I can tell you right now, I can give the spoiler, the answer is definitely maybe. Back in late last year, December, ChatGPT came out, took the world by storm. It was in all the newspapers, everybody was talking about it. This is an article from the New York Times about ChatGPT. What is ChatGPT? Well, it was a chatbot, but it was a chatbot that is so realistic, so is able to appear to be a human, that it was phenomenal. And everybody's just really excited about it. If you want to know whether or not AI is going to take your job, let's first talk about what do we mean by AI. What does it mean? Back in the 80s and the 90s, when we talked about AI, we really talked about expert systems. Expert systems are very predictable. They're understandable because they're trained by experts. What you do is you get a really smart guy like Dr. Einstein there. He writes a bunch of rules about whatever problem it is you're trying to solve. Those rules go in an inference engine, and then a regular user can just query the inference engine and really get the expertise of the expert who trained it. So it is artificial intelligence in the sense that it is the computer that's coming up with the answers, but it was trained by an expert. These things are still around, they're still relevant. I worked on one as recently as 2020. You may remember 2020, that was the start of the COVID pandemic. But long before they developed any COVID tests, I was part of a team that was asked to figure out, hey, how can we tell if somebody has COVID? And we started with an expert system for a couple of reasons. Number one, we didn't have any data to do anything different. All we had was rules. And number two, we were working with doctors, and doctors like expert systems because, well, they're the experts, and expert systems are understandable. And so the doctors were able to come up with rules that we were able to apply to kind of decide, does this patient likely have COVID or not? What about expert systems for HS classification? Well, I've talked to people who've done these before, and these work well in certain circumstances. If you're a specialized importer that, like, say, auto parts or electronics, you work in a defined subset of the schedule, you've got customs classification experts who can write rules for you. You can build a very nice rule engine. I've talked to people who have done it. The guy that I talked to did it. He's like, it worked really great, but it was a big kind of a maintenance chore. The things that were importing changed, the schedule changed. It ultimately fell out of use, but these can work well. But what I am here to tell you is that expert systems are not coming for your job because they still require an expert. Okay. In the aughts and the teens, our concept of AI kind of changed from expert systems to machine learning. Machine learning is less predictable and understandable in expert systems because it really makes up its own rules, but it's trained by this machine iterating over labeled data. Well, what do I mean by labeled data? Here's a great example of labeled data here. Is this a picture of a Chihuahua or a blueberry muffin? Some of them are Chihuahuas, some are blueberry muffins. So a machine iterates over these labeled data, it forms its own rules, and then it's able to take those rules and kind of extend it to things that we haven't seen before. Machine learning for HS classification is being used. It works well. I went to a seminar with a company that developed it, and here's where it works. It works when you have a lot of data to feed it, because that's what it has to be trained on, labeled data. So if you're a large importer exporter who has a lot of historical data, has a lot of different types of data in there, including the HS codes that those things were classified under, what you can train machine learning to do is to find existing commodities that are like the new commodities that you're trying to import. And so you're not really training machine learning to do classification, you're training the machine learning to find what product that you already imported does this product look like, and then that's how it can do classification because you've already done it before. So it's really built on the work of the classification experts that already did it. And so machine learning is not really coming for your job either. Moving on, now we're up to the 20s. When we talk about AI in the 20s, what do we mean? Well, especially recently, what we really mean is generative AI, because it has revolutionized AI. Generative AI is completely unpredictable and inscrutable compared to the other forms that I talked about because it trains itself. It's really phenomenal. It's across all the spectrum. It can create art, it can create music, and what we're interested in is it can create text. So, I went out to ChatGPT, which I already talked about, and said, hey, give me a limerick about generative AI. And here it is. There was a Gen AI so slick, it could mimic and talk without a hic. Its responses so real. And that's the thing. I mean, this thing is really real, as if it were a human. Its flaws hard to feel, yet sometimes the answers were a trick. And that's the real takeaway from this. The answers are a trick. Because one of the things about these generative AIs is they will make things up. In the actual technical term for it is hallucinate. These things will hallucinate. They will make things up and tell them to you very convincingly as if they're real. So you don't have to take it with just a grain of salt, what you get from generative AI. You have to take it with an entire shaker of salt.